Welcome to the third video in this series where we explore the areas where Excel users can utilize the power of Python programming language and make their life easier. You don't really have to switch to Python only, you can use Python and Excel side by side. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let's load our sample sales data and then review it inside of VS Code to get a feel of our data frame. So we'll do our imports. We will import pandas, NumPy, OS and Excel Wings as XW. So let's do that. Once we get the import in, we will read the data frame. We can read the file using pd.readexcel just to get a feel for our data frame. So let's do that. Once the data frame is loaded, we can do df.info to get information for our columns like data type and memory usage. Keep in mind that this step is not necessary. You can load it directly into Excel Wings, but this is generally a good practice. As you can easily see here, what columns are what data types. So we have 3 float data types, 4 integers and 7 object columns. Great. Now let's load this file inside of Excel Wings library. Oftentimes you will be using pandas and Excel Wings library within the same code, so get comfortable. Loading the file is very simple. We declare a variable called wb as in workbook, and we put it equals to xw, which is for Excel Wings library abbreviation, like we use pd for pandas, and then we give the file name. Since our file is in the same directory, we can just give the file name. If it's not in the same directory, you will have to give the full file location. So for example, you can give the location like xw.book, and here you will need to add r for raw, and then you give the file location just like this. All right, let me remove this. Once you have the file loaded, we will declare a sheet variable that will hold the individual worksheet. That is, let me open up the Excel file, and basically that sheet is called this one that we have down below. So for example, if I add another one, right now we have 2 sheets here. Let me close this. Okay, so we are going to save the first worksheet inside of sheet variable. We access that using 0 index. We can also give the tab name here as well. Let's run this. And you can see we have sheet 1 saved inside of sheet variable. This is the same sheet which we had in our Excel file. Keep in mind that once you load in the file using Excel Wings library, Excel will open up the file as well and work in real time. Unlike OpenPyXL, where you don't work in real time. Now that we have the file loaded in Excel Wings, let's do our first formatting, which is fixing date format of column H, which is clearing date. For some reason, Excel is picking up this as an integer. So if I select the column, using Alt spacebar and then doing Alt H and S for short date. As you can see here, these are all date formats. Let me convert this back to general format so we can see this happening in real time in our code. We can change column format using number_format property. You can read more on this on Excel Wings documentation page simply using number_format. So let's say if I open up Excel Wings page, I can directly search this in Google as well. So let's just type Excel Wings and call number_format, and you should be able to see the documentation page as a first result. Right, so search this here again, and you can see the number format is very easy to use. You just type xw.range, and then you select the area, and then you give number format. So I'm guessing 0.00 is for percentage or something similar. So let's copy this line and let's modify it. So let's call it sheet.range, and then let's do h through h. And for number format, let's just try to do this and see what the result returns. And you can see this has converted the date to a percentage, which is not what we need. So let's remove this and let's add the date format here. All right, so our date format is going to be months, day and year. So let's keep an eye on this. As soon as we run the code, this should change. All right, so you can see we have the correct date format right here. And if we select the column and press Ctrl+1 to access the format cells box, in custom you can see the custom date format. Just for testing purposes, let's convert this to short date format, and then from Ctrl+1 custom, let's see what this format is. And this is actually 1M, 1D and 4Y. So let's do that. I'm just gonna change this here and convert this back to general format just to see. We can simply copy and paste these formats from here and use them. Alright, so this has done exactly what we needed it to do, and we should be good. While this works, it is not dynamic, and we certainly don't want to hard code the column letters. What if we want to add a column at beginning of our data? Everything will stop to work and all of our columns will be shifted. So for example, if I just add a column here and run this code again, our column H is not date anymore, which means that this is hard coding will not work. Let's figure out if we can make this dynamic. First things first, we need to figure out a way to read first line of our data and store it in a variable. We can do that by using sheet range and giving it row 1. So let's do that. Right, so we declare a variable called header underscore row and put it equal to sheet dot range 1 through 1. This is going to read the first line. Let's do that. I'm just going to add header row here as well so it can print it as well. And you can see we have these columns. So we have item identifier and last column is outlet type. We can see here, and we get our first row in format list, and we can see the column names. Next, we can use dot index to find the column number in numeric format. Let's do that. So we declare a new variable called column underscore index and put it equal to header underscore row, which we calculate here, and then use index, and then we can just give the column name here. So let's say the column we want to look for is clearing date. So let's give the column name here. And as soon as we run it, we want this to be printed. So let's add this here again. And you can see it returns 7. So let's see if it's 7 actually or not. So column number is actually 8. The problem is that the index is 0 based, which is why it's picking up one column behind. So this should be 8 when it's picking up 7 in the code. We can fix the problem simply by adding +1, and this is always going to give us the correct column number because Excel is 1 based and the index is 0 based. Run this again, and now we have 8 here, which is the 8th column number we saw here. You can see 8th column number. Our final goal is to return column letters like h through h. For that, we can use utils.column underscore name and feed it to column index. Let's do that. We will use utils.call underscore name and give it column index. So basically what this will do is 8 will return column h to us and 9 will return column I, so on and so forth. Let's put this equals to a new variable called column underscore letter. I know this looks very difficult right now, but once we are done with this, it will be very easy and very reproducible as soon as we convert it into a function. And you can see from the column name or the column header, we have finally arrived into column letter, that is column h. Next, we need to convert this to format like the line above, which we used first. So let's copy and paste this line just for reference so we can replicate it. Copy and paste this and then do it again, convert this into a comment. We'll just use this as a starting point on what we finally want to achieve. All right, so now we can use f strings. So let's see how f strings can be used. Let me add a new cell here. F strings are very easy to use. Let's say we want to print my name is Ali. So let's do that. We open up print, and then we open up f strings and we open up double quotes. All right, so let's say my name is Ali, and this is going to print this line. Great, simple, right? Here we are hard coding everything. Let's say we want this line to show the name of whoever is running this code. We can do that simply by replacing Ali and adding curly braces here, right? So let's also declare a new variable. Let's just call it user underscore name, my bad. And here we will just type Ali, and now we will simply replace this variable name inside of our f strings, and you guessed it right, we will get the print that says the same thing, just that we have now not hard coded this value, and this value is now inside of a variable. We can also directly use a function instead of declaring a variable. So let's say we want a name of whoever is using the PC to be printed. So let's do that. For that, we will use os.getEnvironment username. So let's do that. So instead of using this variable, we will simply add os.getEnvironment, and here we will say user name. Let's run it. If even I comment this out, we should still get Ali in here because this is directly getting the username from the PC name. Let's get back to our topic. The line we need to modify is sheet range h through h number format. So let me get rid of this, or let me comment this out, and let's get back to modifying this line. So the area we need to modify is h through h. So let's make this blank. We add an f strings here, add double quotes here, and we will add 2 curly braces for the 2 letters. So add colon here and another curly braces. Now we know that the letter number we found out is inside of column letter, so we can just replace column letter as the value here. And if I change this back to general format and run this again, and boom, our code works. Let's test it on another column. Right, so let's check this on order date. As you can see, it's in a general format column. So let's copy and paste the column name, Now what we will need to do is we will need to add the whole code block here just to test it. So I'm just gonna add new name as a comment, and let's copy and paste the relevant lines. The lines we need are these ones. We have column index here, we have column letter here. We can actually skip the header row because this is gonna remain the same for each line. So let's remove this column index, column letter, and then we have finally this line here. So let's do that. I'm just gonna change the column name from here to order date, and as soon as we run this, we should see the order date here change to the date format which we selected, and boom, our code block works. And we can simply just now give the column name or column header and the format, and our code will work. Just imagine and compare this whole code block with this one and how far we have come and how easy this is. Now next problem and challenge is that we don't want to keep copy pasting this code block for each column transformation, right? So for example, each time I would like to do something, I would have to copy and paste these 3 lines, which is not very smart. So let's convert this code block to a reusable function. So we can just call the function and get our final output. So we define a new function. We call it format by header, and the 2 variables it will accept, or the 2 parameters it will accept, are header name and number format. Right, so the first thing we will give it is the header row. You can actually give a new parameter that will be header row. So for example, at times you could have row 2 as your first row, but for now I'm gonna skip it. Since our header row is going to remain the same, I'm going to exclude it from this function. We will start with our first line, which was column index. Then we have the second line, which is column letters. So let me add the second line here, column letter. So the header name, which we will input as a text, and number format, which we'll input as a format as well. And the third and the final row we have is the actual line that is making this change. Great. Now let's run this, and now let's test to see if our function works. So I'm gonna add this here, open curly braces. For this time we are going to change this column, as item visibility, to percentage. So we copy and paste this column, convert it into text, and here we will add the percentage format, which let me see if I have somewhere. Great, I have it here. So it's going to be 0%. And as soon as we run it, we should see that the item visibility column should be converted into a percentage. And great, you can see this column has now been converted to a percentage, and our little function works and is reusable. Now let's see if we can make it work on multiple columns using a for loop. Let's do that. So I'm just going to convert these 2 date columns back to general format. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to declare a new list called date underscore calls, which will have 2 columns in it. You can have more values in it as our data expands and we add more date columns. We can now create a for loop that will iterate over these 2 values in the list, and in each iteration we'll simply use call x, that's the column name, and the date format. Keep in mind that for each transformation we will have to use a separate loop. So for example, if you have a percentage format and a date format, you will have to use 2 different loops. Let's run it, and boom, our for loop works as well. See how simple we have made this and how difficult it was at the beginning. In the future we can just add another date column to a list, and this for loop should continue to work. Now let's finally test this by changing few columns to accounting format. So let's declare a new list. I'm gonna call it int underscore columns, and it will have item weight, item MRP, and finally item quantity. Alright, so let's add our for loop here. I'm going to just add the loop here, and then I will explain what this is. Right, so you might see this very difficult looking format. This is actually very easy, and let me show you how we can find it. So I'm just gonna go to Excel and convert this to accounting format, or whatever format you normally use. Then press Ctrl 1 to jump over to the format cells box, and from here we will say custom, and you can see this is the actual format that is working behind the scenes. You can just copy and paste this and add it here inside of single quotes, and Excelwings knows what this format is and how to use it inside of Excel. Great. Now let me convert this format back, and now let's run our loop to see if these 3 columns are changed, and boom, we have our item weight, item MRP, and item quantity converted to accounting date formats. Great. By simply changing the column names and the formats, we are able to easily switch between different formats. This wraps up the 3rd video of the series. In the 4th part, we will continue with our formatting journey with Excelwings and dive into custom formatting like highlighting a row if count is greater than 5 or if value is equal to specific string, etc. We'll also figure out an easy way to find last row and last column using Excelwings library. I hope you're enjoying this new series and are learning new skills. If you have any specific topic or issue you would like me to make a video on, add it in the comment section. Till next time, happy learning.